Jonathon Triest from Ludlow Ventures. I'm very, very excited to bring Dan Gilbert to Los Angeles to meet all of you. I've seen that video 300 times. It still pumps me up like crazy. I want my family to play that video for me every single morning just to get me ready for work. It's unbelievable.
You do that. Don't you drive around in those cars with people you interview anyway?
We do a little of that, and we should just have this. Well, that'd be dangerous. No one really cares. Are you selling the Cavs?
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you all so much for coming, and have a nice day. There was a lot of stuff online about you selling the Cavs. Stephen A. Smith, I think you call him John A. Doe.
Or somebody does. No,
How does it happen? How does that just start spreading?
Well, I think just, if you believe in something called fake news, that would be in the category of that, right? So it just, I don't know, it shocks me. When we bought the Cavs like 12, 13 years ago, the first article ever that was in the Cleveland paper was, new ownership group flies around LeBron's mother to away games. That was the headline. At the time the article came out, it was a whole article. We had never even met her. So things, sometimes you get that stuff that happens. But there's, I'd say still the majority of reporters are good and honest, but you get a handful. That's all it takes.
So not selling the Cavs?
No.
Okay, you heard it here.
Yep.
Another question about the Cavs, and then we're going to dive into Detroit.
Sure.
So
it's your show, man. I'm just here.
Let's say that the CEO of Microsoft, Satya, gets up at a shareholder meeting, and he says, everything at Microsoft is awesome. We're not exactly sure if Windows is going to stick around next year. Mm-hmm. As you analyze a business like buying a professional sports team, when one of the most important parts of the team are the players that you don't have a lot of control over, how do you get over that hump and make the decision to purchase a team?
Well, first of all, I think that sports is just a completely different category in business than really anything else. Most of you, I assume most people here are either in venture, so they've seen hundreds of entrepreneurs and thousands of companies, or you're your own boss and you run your own business. And you always you walk in the door on any given day, you probably got 1,000 little levers you can push and pull and change and adjust to improve yourself. A sports team, you're really, when it comes to the players, there's three things a year. You got the draft, which is 1 day a year. You have free agency, which probably lasts about 10 days in the summer. And you can trade up to a certain time. There's a trading deadline, but you have to have another team that agrees to do it. So you really have three ways, and two of them you can't touch during the season. So there's not a lot of things you can do. So you got to look at really in the long term, sort of try to create the culture that you want in a business. Same thing in a sports team. But man, I could talk for hours on that, but I'd bore you to death.
No, actually, sure. I'm pretty sure everyone wants to hear about it. But I want to work our way into Detroit and all the work that you're doing in Detroit. But I think it's really important to talk about your story and your entrepreneurial spirit coming up. So when you were younger, like way before the Quicken Loans and the Cavs stuff, what were some of the business endeavors you launched that were pretty creative, got you going?
Wow, I had newspaper routes. I used to sell tools. Tools, like, you ever use one of those?
No, never.
Tools and pots and pans. We used to sell to just go around to sort of the Detroit area and buy it at a wholesale place and mark it up and sell them out of our car. But, it's the best people to sell to in the world, I realized, are salespeople. So if you ever want to sell anything like that, you just walk into like a used car lot or a sale, any place they're salesmen because they buy. So that's what we used to do. And pizza, we used to do pizza out of the kitchen,
You sold pizza? To who?
In my neighborhood, we had Chef Boyardee pizzas, and we got shut down by the health department because we're in a residential area.
How old are you at this time?
I was 12, but my brother was 10. He used to deliver on bikes, him and his friends. But we literally would get 30 orders. It lasted about a week. So we violated the zoning laws, we violated the health laws, we violated everything.
But how does the health department find out about a 12-year-old in the suburbs of Detroit selling pizza?
Yeah, well, it was first of all. Probably a competitor, get these guys shut down. Okay,
so you go from pizza to selling real estate, selling homes for a short while.
Yeah, I had a license I got when I was 18 or 19 years old, but I really didn't. I wouldn't, I hung it at a Century 21. I wouldn't wear that mustard coat. It was too embarrassing. Yellow coat or whatever it was.
And so at some point you shift from selling homes to getting into the mortgage business.
Yeah, like in the mid-'80s, so you didn't need a license or anything, and I just thought one summer I'd actually went between Michigan State, which can't be mentioned at this week, unfortunately, because of all the stuff going on there. But so Michigan State, to law school, and I was only going to law school, I think, probably to please my mother or something like that, because I really didn't want to go. But I went at night, and that summer I just said, I'm going to just give this a shot. And I was brokering loans out of a shared office suite, sort of the predecessor to WeWork from like 25 years before. Not quite as sophisticated, but, I thought I was going to be there for like maybe the summer, give it a shot, but, it's now 32 years later.
So you start
there.
You started the company with 3 people?
Yeah, my brother would come in and out. He was still at University of Michigan, and then I had a friend who's still there at the company.
So it's okay. So you're in an office, the WeWork of 1985.
Yeah, very gray and beige everywhere.
Pretty boring.
It was not a great place.
Lacks a lot of inspiration, and the company starts growing. I know that a big part of your growth had to do with you seizing the internet before people really understood what it was. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, so we had gone public. We had about 32 branches in the Midwest, a lot of Midwest cities. Your typical sort of storefront homelander. We always liked to invest in technology, even back then. That big Radio Shack technology, whatever we were using back then, but it wasn't quite that. But nothing real sophisticated. But for the time, we always invested in marketing technology. Sort of the banks at that time, believe it or not, when we started out, it was almost like it was almost looked down upon if you were a homelender that advertised. If you can imagine that, it was almost like, that you don't do that kind of thing. That's where the banks were, they were embarrassed. They wouldn't do that, but we would. So the phones really rang. They started ringing, and we were just young guys in their 20s. We'd grow mustaches to look older, and we would go, hustle loans, and we would, go to drop them off at various banks and get on our hands and knees and beg the underwriters to approve the loans. So that was in the early days, but we kept going, and I think that when the internet started to make its appearance. You think of at that time, people were wondering, would people put their social security number, would they put anything into the computer, right? Would they do that? And, people would say back then, well, you can't, you never sell furniture on the internet, you never sell cars, you never sell things people need to touch and feel. But a mortgage is really data. So we thought to ourselves, look, if anything is going to be done on the internet, it should be this, as long as we get past the security issue. So, we jumped in the late 90s, and then we were bought by Intuit, which owner of Quicken, and then we bought it back 2 years later. And kept the name. We licensed the name.
So are you selling the cabs?
No.
Okay.
Still not.
So wait. No. So the company is sold to Intuit.
It's going really slow, Jonathan. There's 17 left here.
Don't tell them how much time is left. You sell the company to Intuit.
Yep.
And at this point, are you thinking, I'm retiring?
No, because I never got in it, for the money part. Like, the money is nice. We have one of our isms. We have a philosophy, a little book you're holding over there, but it's one of our 19 sort of sayings that define us as a business is, money follows, it does not lead. And we really always felt that way. To me, ironically, the people who acquire the most wealth in the world are people who are just passionate and pumped up about their business and just love what they do, and they love building things, and money follows them. So, no, I was only 36 or 7 years old or something at the time, so no.
Okay, so you were ready to jump right back in.
Plus, my wife would have absolutely divorced me if I stayed at home, for sure.
So you buy the company back, and the company is growing, and it's growing really fast in the suburbs of Detroit.
Yeah, for the most part, yep.
When do you make the decision, okay, I want to move this company downtown?
Well, at the end of the last decade, we're in about 5 or 6 places around the suburbs, about 5-6 miles apart. Very difficult, cumbersome to get around. If you recall, I don't know what to refer to the decade between 0 and 10. It has no name yet, but we knew our leases were coming due at the end of that decade. So you really have a choice. You either can continue on in the cumbersome environment you're in. We could try to imitate a Silicon Valley campus and go get a piece of land, or we can go downtown Detroit and make a run for it. Now, I'm a 4th generation born in Detroit. It's sort of in our blood, and you probably have to be 6, 7, 8 years older than me to remember what people, my grandparents, great-grandparents, parents would talk about Detroit in sort of these adoring, incredibly passionate terms. And, all we knew, I was there the first 5 years I lived there, and then we moved about a mile out or 2 miles out in the suburbs. But, Detroit between the 20s and the 60s was the wealthiest city in America, like by far, on a per capita basis. It was just, from the auto industry and everything. And then you have 50 to 60 years of just complete collapse, unprecedented in American history. And we figured we had a lot of people. We were employee heavy as a lender, and I said, you know what? These buildings are beautiful. Let's give it a shot. So we started with 1,400 people. We moved 1,400 people down in the summer of 2010, And I have to tell you, not from the second day, third day, fourth day, I mean, I had never worked in an urban core ever anywhere. And let me tell you, Detroit wasn't much of an urban core 8 years ago, but there's still a different feeling of energy and sort of, you can't explain it, of a can-do approach. And it's just a better place, I think, for businesses to thrive in. And there's so much diversity down there. And the whole thing, there's an art scene already starting to happen. I know Shepard Fairey, he's done some things in Detroit. Of course, we try to arrest him, well, for things for making the place more beautiful. But I from that moment, it was we're never turning back, and all of our people want to come now too. So now we're 17,000 full-time people in downtown Detroit.
So I want to talk about that for a second. So you moved the company down in 2010, and
we started to move it.
Okay, yeah. and since then, $13 billion in statewide economic impact. $5 billion invested in the Detroit economy alone. You have 17,000 plus employees working downtown. You have over 4,000 employees who are living all over the Detroit area.
Yeah, that was actually, I think, one of the most important things, not since you're going over your numbers there, but we had 75 people. We tracked this pretty closely. 75 people when we were in the suburbs who lived in the city of Detroit. 75 when we moved down. Now it's over 4,000. Now, when we had our HR team put a dot on a map for each person that works for us that lives in the city, we expected it all to be right around downtown. We said, when they brought it to me, I said, something's wrong, go take it back. Had them check it 3 times. Surprisingly, everywhere, every zip code, every neighborhood, everything. So, what helps neighborhoods the most are jobs, period. And jobs are going to be, the good jobs are going to be in downtown. So, it's one city and it all feeds on each other.
And it's also, you guys are also the largest minority employer. You're the largest taxpayer in the city. Now things look great right now, and I imagine they're going to continue to get better. But when you're rebuilding a city, I mean, that's an audacious task. What is the very first thing you did to get that process just moving? So,
Jonathan, we don't really look at it necessarily, we're going down here to rebuild a city. Yes, we wanted to impact it as much as we possibly could, right? So the one thing we did not want to do was to have our people drive downtown, get out of their car in a garage, go upstairs, get back in their car, and go home. You might as well have been in the suburbs. There's not, so we from day one promoted people getting involved in the community and making sure wherever they parked, at least walking a couple blocks and experiencing things, and always setting up, events and community stuff and getting to know the town. I mean, it was, people, we bring in we had 1,100 interns last summer, and we got them from everywhere across the United States, and we had like 20-something thousand applications, and I'm not saying that it had anything to do with Quicken Loans. I mean, who wants to work at a mortgage company, right? I mean, that's, we're hoping for more than that, but that's what you look like, right? But they're really coming for Detroit. And this generation, I know that we talk about, a lot of people, it sort of sounds cliche a little bit, but this generation does. I can tell you from the interviews I've been in and the surveys and all that, way more than other, or previous generations, I should say, the last few at least, impacting the outcome of the city and communities they're in is definitely a bigger thing. Yeah, they want to do well like anybody else does financially, but they really do. Most of them, they have that kind of thing. So we use right now, we sell against the city. People come out of the universities that we're recruiting from, and it was almost unfathomable to think that we would have, graduates from Stanford and Harvard and Yale and Georgetown, just even 3-4 years ago, but they're coming from there. And I think they're coming because of the story, and they want to make a difference. I mean, I know it sounds kind of a little bit, but it's the reality.
There's a lot of people coming, like you're mentioning. There's a perception, I know, because I hear it all the time, that there's not talent in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
I know that's not true. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, Quicken Loans is a technology company that, I know that people use this term a lot too, but we've been saying it for a long time. Technology company happens to do home loans. I mean, that's the truth. We've got, close to 2,500 full-time tech people. I mean, everything we do, we're going to run a Super Bowl commercial this weekend, Sunday, touting our it's an 8-minute solution, Rocket Mortgage, which we launched 2 years ago in the Super Bowl, but actually it was a minute. You can do it in a minute, but the focus groups, nobody believes it's a minute. So they said they won't buy it if it's a minute. They won't do it. They think something's wrong with it. So we just say it's 8 minutes. So that's the truth, because people think it's a more, and people, we got a lot of heat a couple of years ago because people said, this can't happen. It's a more, well, first of all, when everything's electronic, you have digital pathways to verifying income and verifying employment and verifying assets and verifying databases that have values and title and credit. There's no way there's no fraud in between. Like, it's only when human beings get involved that you have the fraud thing. So it's actually safer, cleaner, less fraud in the system, all that stuff. So anyway, I brought that full circle saying talent. There's a lot of talent. And you know, if you look at Seattle, 12 million people live within a 5-hour drive of Seattle. They have no problem attracting talent because of the great companies they have. We have 52 million people within a 5-hour drive. So, and it's beautiful. You saw the video, right? It's good, you know.
That's an interesting point because I see that and I'm pumped up. But I also live there. I see it. I work there every day. There's a big difference between seeing it and visiting it.
Yeah.
And I know that you're very active in bringing people to. Can I just see a show of hands? It's kind of a little hard to see, but has anyone been to the city of Detroit in the past 5 years? A decent number.
Yeah.
How about the past 2 years? Because it looks like a new city every year to me right now. Yeah. What are your goals in terms of how do you bring people there to witness it for themselves?
Well, I think you're bringing up a good point because Detroit has had such a reputational challenge. I mean, name another city that's had a half a century of decline where, you know, just year after year, decade after decade, right? So no matter what I say up here, and no matter how many of these fancy videos we put out or whatever, people are still going to have sort of that feeling until they get there. And when they get there, it's like 90 minutes and we can turn it, I mean, almost 100% because it's so different from what you see and imagine. And I mean, we're out of residential downtown, residential space, we're out of office space. And so there's all kinds of, finally, for the first time again, in it's probably 60 years, there's a construction boom happening, billions of dollars of construction are going on. And it's an exciting place to be. I just, you know, a lot of people in our line wasn't, of course, it's not just, I mean, there's, you know, General Motors is doing it very well and out of space. They're turning, really technology on wheels. The autonomous vehicle world is centered in Detroit. People think it's Silicon Valley. There's pieces there, but the world is, it's Detroit where all this stuff is happening, really. You got to make cars still. You can't just make the technology. So I think that I think the future is pretty good overall. There's a whole technology scene there now. There's venture capital coming in. We have investments from Silicon Valley venture companies, which is not, you know, last year, 2 or 3 of them.
So besides Quicken Loans and the success of Quicken Loans, talk about some of the other companies that you're really excited about in the city of Detroit.
In Detroit.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of them that depends on the day, right? I think, well, there's a company, the most exciting company right now is a company called StockX, which is the stock market of things, which I think there's a company coming up in a little bit that competes. We compete with them. And basically, you have a bid-ask on sneakers, you have a bid-ask on streetwear, you have a bid-ask on watches, on handbags, and we're going into many other verticals. But it's truly, the stock market, it's anonymous, it's got transparency and visibility, you can pull up prices, you know, it's so sort of a new concept, and it's really taken off in a big way, and we're most excited about that one. There's about almost 200 people there. It's only about a year and a half old. We verify everything. So unlike eBay, you know, if you bid for let's call it the LeBron 12s or whatever is that what you're wearing?
It's 13.
13, LeBron 13s. There's a seller on the other end of that. Trade executes. We take in and hold the money. The shoes come in. We verify it in Detroit, authenticate it, and then we release the money and the shoes the other way. So it's you know, the consumer, the buyer doesn't have to, you know, verify and worry about try. We get behind it, and it's taken off. Like on the Friday after Thanksgiving, we had like 11,000 trades just for the sneaker market on one day. That was our record so far. But it's just like, you know, crazy stuff that you didn't think would happen. But that's a downtown Detroit technology company.
What was it? I mean, you see a lot of companies. You talk about a lot of companies. What was it about StockX that made you more excited than a lot of the other things you're seeing?
Well, I think if you can get into a technology-based business, that if you're first, then that helps, right? Doesn't mean you always win, but if you're first, and it's a sort of a new concept, right? I mean, we got the idea from, you know, the whole ticketing market, right? Which still doesn't have a pure, real kind of bid-ask. I mean, you've got the StubHubs and the other things, but you got an offer price, but not. This is pure, you know, bid, offer, bid. You can see all the bids and offers behind it. You can see what's going on. I think people want visibility and they want to be able to trust it. So it's a new way of doing business. So that excited me because if that took off, you know, number one, you'd be first. Number two, it's a highly leverageable business. So you can leverage it in a big way.
So just
similar to mortgage. I mean, mortgage is the same way for us, right?
Well,
I mean, same thing.
So back to mortgages for a second. 3 guys in a shared workspace. Recently, I think it was announced today, you just become the largest residential mortgage lender in the world. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I don't look at the other countries mortgage volumes, but I
let's say the United States.
Yeah.
For sure in the United States, you just surpassed all the big banks, Wells Fargo most recently. When you started and you're sitting there, and I know you're ambitious, I imagine you think you're going to be successful in the mortgage world. But what was your perception of success at that time? Did you ever think it would be like this?
I mean, the first day I remember starting in a 10 by 10 shared office suite, and I had a chair for a month and didn't have a desk because it was on order. I mean, it was called these old Han. They're still around. Han, the company Han. Han was the desk company. Those old sort of looking desks you see in like 50s and 60s in movies or something. But yeah, so it was getting a desk. You know, I think most entrepreneurs, I don't know. You know, I never really. I try not to think too like more than 12 or 18 months, 24 months out really. Maybe when you get bigger, you sort of have to do a little bit more planning. I mean, to me, it was just getting better. I mean, and worrying about people not taking enough risk. Like a lot of people, you see this to this day. People are afraid of failure. I have like a serious fear of things staying the same. I wake up in a cold sweat, like the status quo. It's like it's like a bureaucrat's heaven or something. I just, that's the problem today, and nothing. Now that the speed of the game has increased by how much because of technology, now has increased the speed, but the pipe of information is getting wider and bigger. So man, now you have to keep up with the speed, and that's probably my biggest thing. Are people keeping up with the speed? 17,000 plus people and growing, and it's not as easy, of course, to grow when you have that base, and you have to make sure everybody's on the same culture page and everything else. So it's an interesting challenge. We had a great CEO. I'm the chairman. Guy's been with us 20-something years, and we have a great management team. I mean, I'm really excited about them. That's for sure.
Culture is hugely important to you. You have I have this book here called you call your what would you call the isms?
The isms, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good name for the isms.
But it's it's normally $19.99 plus shipping handling, Jonathan.
This is the one lucky contestant. No, we can get these.
I actually did see. Somebody showed me. It's a true story. I thought they were kidding, but they're like $45 on eBay. No, I'm serious.
Are they on StockX?
I mean, I wouldn't buy that for $45.
Not yet.
No, not on StockX yet.
Yeah. But culture, when you're 5 people, 10 people, that's hard enough. And you're at 17,000 people. I walk in your offices. I see people who have just started working for Quicken Loans, and I see them take a real care in the company as if they're the owner, as if they're the CEO. Yeah. How on earth do you do that at scale? At 17,000 people.
I would actually make the reverse argument that culture. Look, companies can muscle things out for a certain period of time. And what I mean by that is that if you have a handful of guys, and I mean women and men, I just use that guys thing. I saw a woman that was in my company. I walked by, she asked 4 other women, said, "Do you guys want to go out to lunch?" And I stopped and I said, "What did you just call them?" She said, "Guys." I said, "I'm off the hook forever." So when you have people, in a room, and you're young, or not young, doesn't matter what you are, but you can muscle it out when you have more things to do or less things to do than time in the day. Once you cross that line where there's more things to do than time in the day, you better have a culture or a compass for your business to grow. Because really a business, I mean, look, there's 4 things that we have, the reason we have a culture, 4 reasons. I mean, you want to drive decision making, priorities, actions, and behaviors. And if you don't have any compass for people to make decisions, and what they should prioritize, then fear is going to sink in the system. If fear sinks in, then things start going very, very bad. So, I think when you have the company grows, I mean, it's hard enough. Look, we preach this stuff every single day, and we're pounding the table and try to walk the walk. And daily, we still come across things. That's not who we are. Right? That doesn't. But you just try to get everybody. You'll never be perfect, but you just got to get better. Try to get better every day.
So, with a minute left. Your team is going to hate me.
Which team are we talking about?
The team who helps you manage
not the other team.
Communications, and you might be disappointed in me as well, and I feel very badly about that. And since you are one of our largest LPs, I hope this doesn't really interrupt our relationship too much. But
you sure you want to do whatever you're going to do? You have a chance to get out right now.
I want to do it.
Okay, good.
I feel really privileged that I've been able to get to know you, and you've been hugely helpful in my life. I'm going to give your email address to everybody in the audience.
Oh, that's good.
I know I've heard you say it to like a group of 10 people, like, hey, just email me. So I'm going to assume to 500 people it's the same thing. Dan Gilbert at quickenloans.com. Yep. Email Dan, because I think one of the things that I'm fascinated about you is that this sounds a little bit like fanboy all of a sudden. Sorry about that. Like you're a rock star, and I'm like, yeah. But you're deeply curious, and you take an interest in everybody and what they're doing.
Well, you start cutting yourself off from people. You hear about this as you're growing a business, right? Along the route, you hear people say to you, you really shouldn't be doing that anymore. You shouldn't do it. I think it's the opposite. The people who start off running small companies and are running medium and bigger companies, their mistake is they get away from their business. The closer you are to the bowels of your business, that's what we like to call it. I think the more grounded and successful you continue to be. That's my flavor. By the way, no dots, no dashes, no underscores in that email address.
So, Look, thank you so much for coming to Los Angeles.